Luciano, ¿cómo estás, amigo?
Bien. No las matillas, ¿no? No está abajo, no. Miren, no le ando grabando abajo. Lo volteo y lo diagonal. Miren, man. ¿Cómo le hacen nada? Puro de comida, ¿no?
There you go.
All right.
We got a couple of 20-foot wagons that we loaded up out there in the field a moment ago. Now we're down here at the barn and we're performing an operation that we call housing. We're hanging these sticks on the rails in this barn for curing. We'll start with Pedro. Pedro is handing off the wagon, and because we cannot drive through all 3 sheds of this barn, we have to pass it over to hang the sides. And so he's going to hand the stick to these 2 men on the ground that are handing up, or poking up. There are 3 handholds on each one of these sticks. Like my dad told you earlier, there's one in the middle and one on each end, and it's a mutual effort to pass that stick without it stopping. You want that stick to keep moving. If that stick stops at any point in time, you've got to restart it, and that requires more oomph. Today's tobacco's pretty small, so it's handling fast. But the man from the wagon is passing to the men on the ground, and they're handing up to the men in the tiers. In the tiers, you've got a bottom tier man and a top tier man. The bottom tier man gets every stick. So he has to make a decision of whether he's going to hang it or pass it. So he's going to hang one and pass one, and hang one and pass one. When the stick is laid across the rail, you got to space the plants out evenly. What, buddy? I got you. We want to spread those plants out across that stick so that they breathe. If you come by here in the morning, this barn, if you drive by this barn in the morning, it'll smell like a cigar shop. This barn breathes. Just look at the siding. You're going to see daylight in the cracks between the boards by design. So we spread the plants out across the stick, and we leave space between the sticks so that this tobacco can breathe, and that'll give us that good color that we're looking for. That's what the companies want. That's your boy.
This young man smoke right here?
Yeah, baga.
He's the cool.
He is on it.
Is that called multitasking?
Uh-huh. Hey, that's how I learned. That's how these boys learn too.
All right.
We had lots and lots of rain this season, and there's a lot of variability in this tobacco. If you pan across that bottom tier right there, you're going to see everything from 18 inches tall to 4 feet tall, and 4 feet tall is about as big as it got up here. Some years it'll get 6 or 7 feet tall, and when we take the flower out of it, we'll sort of regulate how big it's going to be when we take it to the barn by where we break it. But this tobacco here was short, too much water. This is also the 3rd year on this piece of ground, so we're going to move to a different piece of ground next time. 14 more years. No, you're not getting off that easy. Now that Muhammad has mastered the art of using the handholds to pass the stick, watch the men in the barn. Luciano is in the bottom tier, and he's going to pass that to the man above him, and then he's going to hang the next one. And after he hangs it on the rail, he's going to space the plants out evenly so they cure. Burley will be housing.
It's a little bit.
Part of my job as the owner-operator is to get the right number of people in the right position. And we have 6 men that came here to work. And in this particular instance, they need 7. So, in many cases, I'm the 7th guy. Or the unwilling bystander gets drafted. Well, I don't know if he's unwilling. I think he's willing.
Yeah, he looks familiar.
But you'll see right now we've got a real smooth flow of tobacco from the wagon up into the barn. The way that you'll know that it's a smooth flow is that it never stops moving. From the time it gets picked up off the wagon to the time it gets spread out on the tier, it never stops. That motion never stops. And if that motion is stopping and starting, you've either got some inexperience or you don't have the right number of people.
So what decides if a plant goes on the top row or the bottom row?
What you really want to achieve is you want it to hang straight down. You know how the shingles on the roof of a house lay on top of one another? You don't want the tobacco to lay on top of one another because it won't cure properly. What, buddy? What, buddy? A rock? You want to go see it?
It's nice to just listen to the sound of
Nothing.
nothing. There we go.
Down in western Kentucky, they raise that dark fire-cured tobacco, and the tobacco is a darker green color. When they plant it in the field, they put more space between the plants. The plants get larger this way, but they're not very tall. And we actually visited with a farmer down in that part of the state one time, and he was stripping that dark tobacco, and it only had about 16 leaves on a plant, but they were about this long and about this wide. And they were real thick, almost felt like leather. And then we talked with a representative from one of them companies down there, and they actually come out to your barn and appraise it before you strip it. And for that reason, they weren't interested in giving us a contract to grow that stuff. Furthermore, they had plenty of growers right in their immediate vicinity that were willing to grow all that they needed and then some. But it was a very interesting process, and I guess this stuff here's made out of it. One of the differences in the dark fire-cured tobacco, as the name suggests, they use smoldering fire during the curing process, and it gives that tobacco a dark, almost like a hickory smoked smell. And the tobacco leaf is very porous, so it absorbs whatever smells are around it. And those guys will hang it in a barn similar to this one, and then they'll build little fires on the floor. And they build these little fires on the floor and smother them with sawdust and shut the doors and let the smoke. This year's crop is producing some decent leaves, but they feel thin to me. They just don't have much body. And I attribute that to all the rainfall that we've had. It's probably not going to make a whole lot of pounds, and that's not good for the bottom line. But that's what we have at this juncture. Possibly a little sunburn right there.
Well, this tobacco does look a little better than the other stuff you had over there at Wheeler's, because there's not much frog eye I don't see.
That disease likes a wet environment, and I don't know if you noticed or not, this field over here's got a lot of slope to it. And it's almost like a solar array in the afternoon when the sun comes around, that slope of that field. And I think maybe that helped dry the field out so that disease wasn't so prevalent. Over at the other field, it's shaped just like a dish, and it held a lot of water. And the other field was about a week ahead of this. We transplanted it the 25th of May, and then we were over here maybe about the 6th of June, 5th to 6th of June, planting this field. So there was some time difference. And then lastly, there's a variety difference. We had 404 in that field, and this is KT215, which is a relatively new variety, and I don't think it realized its full potential this year with all the excessive rainfall we had. We were also unable to cultivate this field, same as Wheeler's. Normally we would cultivate 2 or 3 times, but we didn't get to cultivate it at all. That made the field hard. The ground was hard, and the tobacco didn't grow good. The scientists at the University of Kentucky continually breed new varieties of tobacco. They actually use a greenhouse, and because a lot of our customers are export customers, genetic engineering is not allowed in tobacco. So we want to protect those export markets for countries that don't like genetically modified crops. So tobacco is bred the old-fashioned way, where you take pollen from one plant and put it in the flower of another, and then collect the seed and then replicate that. And because they do it in greenhouses at UK, they can do about 3 crops a season. And with tobacco, there are a lot of diseases that are detrimental to yield, and so if we can breed resistance to that disease into the tobacco, we can raise the yield. And KT215, which is this variety here, is a good example. It has very good resistance to black shank. Black shank is a pathogen that gets in the soil, and it causes the inside of the stalk to rot. The pith, the elevator for the nutrients, it sets up a rot at the base of the plant, and then that plant can't take up nutrients, and it eventually dies. And another disease that we've seen in this field here in particular is called Fusarium wilt, and it's almost like the plant had a stroke. And one side of the plant, the leaves are drooping down, and the other side looks fine. And we had quite a bit of Fusarium wilt in this field, and to counter that, last year I put it in NC7. And NC7 has good resistance to Fusarium wilt, and I had excellent yield up here last year, but I had ideal conditions. We had adequate rainfall, but not excessive. We had 3 cultivations out on this field, and we had a really good crop up here. This time we had all that rainfall, and we didn't get any cultivatings in. But this disease, KT215, or this variety KT215, does have good resistance to both black shank and Fusarium wilt, and that's sort of new. Because in the past you had to sort of pick which disease is the one that's hurting me the worst, and we'd choose a variety based on that. For example, if it's black shank, KT209. KT209 has the best resistance available for black shank. But if we've got Fusarium wilt, NC7 is the best choice. Well, if you have a field that has both, now you have an option in KT215. But the development of new varieties is ongoing, constantly looking for ways to breed resistance into the plant so that we can reduce or eliminate chemicals to control our problems. As far as this tobacco here goes, I did see some hornworms, but I didn't see very many. And when I sprayed for suckers up here, I didn't put any insecticide in the batch, so I didn't put any insecticide on this tobacco. The only insecticide that this tobacco saw this season was what was in the transplant water at the beginning of the season. Hey boys. Some of the tier rails in our barns are round poles. It looks like somebody went into the woods and just cut down a tree and took the limbs off of it and put it in the barn, because that's exactly what they did. When Kentucky settlers first started growing Burley tobacco, they used what they had. They used what they had, and that piece of timber right there has lasted all this time, and there's going to be no reason to change it unless it breaks or unless it gets eat up with termites or something.
It doesn't look too likely because it looks like it's in pretty good shape.
Well, I ain't no small man, and I can pull myself up on that, and it ain't gonna break. So when we've got a full load of tobacco on that, it's not gonna be a problem. Got a few morning glories in this tobacco. Morning glory is a vine that wraps itself around the stalk, and it complicates harvest because it knocks the leaves off the plant, and it complicates stripping because we can't have this ending up in our bales. This is non-tobacco related material, and it's frowned upon by the company that buys this tobacco.